So hi, we are online and participating in the CANactions school talk online. So we are AGENCIA, a young practice from Rio de Janeiro, composed of two partners, Tiago and I, Priscilla. It's a pleasure for us to be here talking with the CANactions School, and we would like to thank you for this invitation. It's a big pleasure. So Anastasia from CANactions asked us to first talk a little bit about the current situation, how it is affecting our practice here in Brazil. Initially, we had all of our projects paused, which is scared us a little bit. But on the other hand, currently we have already started new projects from people unhappy with their homes throughout the quarantine. So they decided to buy new houses and they want the project to be ready for construction to start up right after the pandemic. So the workflow is very uncertain in a way, but it's not a rush as usual. So which is nice. Mm-hmm. So okay. So we started formally our practice in 2018, actually not 2017, but we have been working together for the last 10 years. We both studied in Europe, and we spent some years while studying in Versailles and working in Paris, Copenhagen, and Rotterdam. So these are some of our projects we did throughout these 3 years of Agencia. And as most of the young practice, our main projects are small to medium private commissions among interior houses, but also school renovations. And at the same time, as many colleagues, we also try our luck making competitions in Brazil and abroad. And these competitions have been very important for us as a counterpart of our private commissions. They are the moments where we can test ideas and develop a kind of train of thoughts, which is also informing our private commissions and so on. So we try to develop a coherent production between these two complementary sides of our practice. Last year was a great year for us because we got some mentions, and we were also finalists in this big international competition for a museum in Sydney. But that has just been published this week. And this is a competition we did in collaboration with our friends Bernardes Arquitetura and Bulemax, and also Scale from Australia. So indeterminacy. Indeterminacy is a theme that we have already been addressing, but right now it feels still more relevant. And so by choosing this theme, we hope that we could also talk in parallel about this strange condition that we are living today, fulfilled with so much uncertainty in many aspects. We see architecture as a slow discipline. A building still nowadays can take up to 5 or more years to be built, and it should last for another 100 years at least. Therefore, we think that architecture is not really able to have immediate answers to immediate events. it is precisely by being one of the last forms of knowledge which still operates in the long term and in the longue durée, that architecture is able to have open answers to maintain itself relevant in front of all the complexities that may arrive during its time of existence, as we have now with the pandemic, for example. So we think that architecture needs to be able to keep indeterminate as a strategic quality.
So hello, and to start talking about indeterminacy, this is a graphic work we did early this year for a publication of a freshly born magazine from the architecture school of Marne-la-Vallée in Paris, a magazine called Carte Blanche. And they let us free to choose what to do, and we decided to make a tribute to the artist John Baldassari, who passed away last January. And in many ways, we feel this work is very representative of the team we would like to talk with you this evening. In the work, we did fake Baldassari's, mostly trying to reproduce his violent space series using these famous Brazilian photos. And one could say the result is a new image, where by cutting out a part of the original photography, what is left of it becomes a form. A form that delimitates a specific but empty shape. And this specific empty shape becomes an indeterminate space open to new interpretations, to be fulfilled by the imagination of each viewer. For us, the indeterminacy character of our space can exist in many different ways. It can be seen in this famous photo of Picasso's atelier apartment, where there is no distinction between what is a workspace and what is a domestic space. It's just a generous set of rooms with a high ceiling and plenty of natural light, a space that can have endless appropriations. We think the indeterminacy as a quality can also be seen in this public space in front of the Seagram building in New York, where it's believed that Mies, by focusing the attention of its intervention in the tower itself, was somehow able to justify the open space in front of it. And by doing this, he supposedly managed to subvert the harsh market logic of land's values in Manhattan and the necessity for profit by every square meter built. So as you can see in these pictures, through its absence of a defined user program, this space remains a brief but really valuable moment of discontinuity on Park Avenue, where it's permitted for anyone, although being in a private domain, a generous moment of pause and contemplation.
This urban quality Thiago just showed, it can also be found in the Museum of Modern Art of São Paulo by Elena Bubardi. So the floating box is a well-thought container of the museum's program, while the general space created underneath remains open, mediating the functioning of the museum with the city. So this wonderful space, while apparently empty, becomes in the end the main space of the museum. It is a specific but an indeterminate space that contains and creates the identity of the museum, a space of expansion for its interior, and also a powerful urban space for any kind of appropriation. Completely changing the scale, there is the lobby of the Boa Vista Bank in Rio de Janeiro, a small masterpiece by Niemeyer. For us, it is also an example of a space that remains indeterminate in relation to the restricted logic of a private bank, by being this ambiguous mix of lobby and waiting hall, space without a precise function. So it was the opportunity for Niemeyer to operate a complete change of the total pragmatic logic of the rest of this modernist building above. So a claim for more generous architecture, generous in its intention, form, and also dimensions. In this picture, we can see the double height space fulfilled by this diffuse light coming from this huge curved blurred brick wall. Niemeyer makes clear in the plan also his intention to make this interior part of the bank a public space. However, he knew this idea was not entirely possible because it was bank, but we think the indeterminacy of the space made it as close as possible of his will.
And this old building in Rio, built in the beginning of the 19th century, is for us one of the best examples of indeterminacy in architecture in Brazil. It is the object of a recent research that we made and that we will publish in the next weeks. So the simplicity and the solid aspects seen in its exterior are totally inverted in the interior space. Known today as a cultural center named the French Brazil House, it was designed by the French architect Grandjean de Montigny, who came to Brazil to open the first school of architecture in the country. And the building was originally intended to be a kind of stock exchange, but only worked like this for a few years. After the independence of Brazil, it was left away for a bank storage or something like this. And then it was used as a justice court, as you can see in this not so good quality photo. And nowadays, it is a space open not only for art exhibitions, but also open for any kind of popular appropriations, like local markets and electronic festivals. And therefore, we see the indeterminacy of this interior space as a strategic quality that made it possible for this building to deal with all the surprise that the years would brought to it. And by not responding too precisely to the initial function of this building, Montigny was somehow creating a space of timeless quality that deals with this idea of an expanded notion of time, like a long term, let's say. And then its monumentality, as you can see in this picture of today, it is in the end a kind of generosity. We see it like this, that makes it a well-done container for life take place spontaneously. And so now we present a random series of 8 of our projects, and obey the various scales and types of interventions. We hope that works together in order to show you a same universe of ideas and principles. And well, we'll try to present it in a non-exhaustive way. So first project, this project was a competition for an office building shared by 2 institutions, the Chambers of Architects and Engineers of Sorocaba, a city near São Paulo in Brazil. And the white cutout in the center of the image is the project. So these 2 public institutions decided to buy this cheap site just in the edge of the city, where it starts to meet the countryside, as you can see in the map. So this is a collage for the competition, and the project has as main intention the conception of a very simple but generous building. And also, as you can imagine, for any commission of this kind, the project needs at the same time to create an idea of a public building, but also be very economical. So for that, we decided to make it in an industrial structure, like a shed, and thought to be built very cheap and very quickly. And the way we came up to turn this industrial building into architecture of a public building was through the work of a precise set of actions. So the structural model, the composition of its interior, the conception of its two perimeters, which, as you can see in the image, it is this external gallery and the interior glass facade, a facade that has a specific curve on one of its corners, that is a form that leads the visitors to the back of the plot, where it should be built in a second phase, an auditorium and an office tower. So we believe that these actions together could give to the building idea of monumentality, let's say, working on the creation of its public image. And the plan, as you see, is organized in two independent sides with this multipurpose core formed by the auditorium and the green patio. Like two complementary open spaces, elements of integration that works together, also as a required distance between the different areas of the institution. So now you see the section, and the left side of the building is the place for the more public uses, while the right side is reserved for the office space. And precisely in the middle of it, there is this large space created through the combination of these two central rooms. A space where it's possible to host not only lectures, board meetings or trainings, but also exhibitions, happy hours, public events, and so on. So, yeah. Second project, and we like to think that this project for a big tech company in Joinville, a city in the south of Brazil now, relates very much to the ideas presented in this last project. It was also a competition, and the task was to make both a master plan and the first building of it. A building that should work as the anchor of this whole complex and the headquarters of this same tech company. And so in reaction to the harshness of this industrial complex where the project is situated, our first act was to establish a framework that creates an interior park, incorporating a part of a forest reserve. And in a second moment, this frame, initially conceived as a borderline, acquires thickness, becomes a circulation gallery. And this gallery has a role to regulate the growth of the master plan and to connect each new building that should be built over time. And in the lower left corner of the master plan is the headquarter building, thought to be built before the master plan. And because of it, we decided that it needed to have a set of very similar special principles of the master plan, but on a smaller scale, to also contain a kind of interior park, and in this case, an interior patio. So as you can see in this slide, this is a view of the outside of the master plan. And this corner building, which is the headquarters, and you can also see how this gallery could work as an element that neutralizes and unifies the image of the whole complex. An element that deals somehow with this not really defined future, which is a future composed by these unknown new buildings that would be built by other architects and other clients, let's say. And here you can see the view of the park as an interior landscape, an urban space completely different from the car-oriented urban design of the industrial complex outside. Just a green space shared by all the buildings and its users. So this is the plan of the headquarters building. It is a sequence of perimeters crossed by a diagonal that leads to the interior park, and it is a set of different spaces, like big rooms, small rooms, rooms facing outside, others facing inside. Some of them reserved for more specific uses as auditorium and labs, and other just let free as large communal areas. And in the very center of the plan, just this big patio, like almost as big as the cover area of the building, and like a collective space open for the extension of the internal spaces around it.
So this was a very important project for our practice. It was the result of a private competition held in 2017 that we did in collaboration with two other offices, friends of us, Bebo and Caju. This project consists of a reformulation of a school located in Botafogo Beach here in Rio. It could actually be a very special site just in front of the famous Sugarloaf Mountain, but the school occupies a very long and narrow plot, and its building has almost non-interface with the city. So for these reasons, we understood this project as a kind of interior project where it was needed to increase the quality of the school spaces by bringing more light and green inside without really relating to the outside. As typical, the project for private school renovations here need to be very cheap and to be able to be built very fast during the summer vacation. This one we would only have 3 months to build, no matter what we propose. So although we made the project of classrooms, these spaces were already very defined by the school regulations. And so we decided that in this collage you can see that we decided to focus our intervention very much in the new facade and in the creation of this green patio. And we set these as a kind of first phase of the construction to be able to do it. This is a picture of how the building was before the renovation. It was a disqualified space with bunker-like classrooms where the rooms were very introverted and that totally undervalued the potential of the patio as an interior landscape for the school. As we can see in this plan, due to the chaotic structure situation of the original construction, the architecture intervention we propose completely independently. You can see in the red that we use a model of 1.25 by 1.25 meters. And this model was applied to the new facade, floor, staircase, and ceiling to create conditions to optimize the construction process and to provide a spatial reference for this narrow, long patio. In this picture of the construction site, we can see this new facade bridge, which is totally independent of the existing building. We think it needed to be autonomous to exist in its idea of a modular dimension and spatial strategy. In this project, we thought also to explore the idea of transparency in many ways. In this sense, the new and ambiguous facade of the classroom buildings is composed of 2 layers, an external one made of expanded metal panels, and there is the recessed glass facade that makes the classrooms more integrated with the patio. And in between these two layers, there is the gallery of circulation, which the gallery together and with this green patio become, let's say, the new background of the classrooms and also of the toilets. And this metal facade, solid from outside during the day, becomes almost total transparent at night. And this is the patio only after 6 months from the opening. And we like to see it as an interior oasis of the school. You can see also this external stair. There was need to adapt the building to fire regulations, and we use this obligation to propose this more generous, or I could say a monumental stair that evolves horizontally through the facade, connecting these different moments of the school and also creating open space for students to appropriate. By chance, we also placed a glass facade on the higher level, so you get to the full reflection of the sugar loaf on the very top before access the auditorium. So it kind of gives back a sense of place for the students.
We had also the opportunity to design the new library of the school, and we decided to locate it in the heart of the building, as you can see this plan, in a floor level of connection with the back part of the school. That was a second phase of the project and construction. And one could say it is just a large piece of furniture, but we see it also as a square perimeter of books that conforms a reading room for the students. And this perimeter also contains benches, stands, desks, and also organize both the library itself, its access, and the library's room. That's also storage, a space found in between the shelf and the regular side wall of the plot. And you can see it in the top part of the plan. And here you can see the perimeter of books made by a shelf wall. As typically in our project, it also needed to be economical. So we made it entirely using this cheap plywood. And the point is that by doing so, we managed to negotiate this generous space of the library with the clients that had in mind less ambitious ideas for this space before. So this central space was not filled with fixed furniture in order to allow multiple uses. And the lighting grid provides electric sources in each of its nodes that can be used with hanging cables. And so therefore, we thought a good way for the school library to keep itself as an instrument place was to be a space well defined and with a strong identity, and at the same time a space open to be appropriated. And so you can see that just with a few moves, it can be used as a calm reading room or as a more vibrant social space of the school.
We participated also in these two projects for public schools. One was an elementary one, and the other one a kindergarten to be built in a new neighborhood of Brasilia, the capital of Brazil. And this neighborhood was intended to be all devoted to social housing. Despite the bad quality of the urban planning and the housing blocks, these competitions represented to us two good opportunities to try the project of schools conceived as public equipments. So we understood that the two schools could be spaces open to the city. So they could invite neighbors to use it through activities that could be realized in a generous interior space. So two versions of a kind of interior urbanism, clear and specific architecture forms that could somehow compensate a little bit for the bad quality of this urban design around it. And with these principles in mind, the project for the high school tries to, which is this first one, the white cutout, it tries to occupy the biggest footprint possible of the rectangular site. So the perimeter defines a great interior space divided into 5 alternating parts between built and unbuilt areas. As you can be seen in this section, the three buildings have a proportional different height between them, and that relates to the kind of specific spaces we wanted to create. So the lower building on the left side, the left one, is a more reserved building, more intended to be used for younger kids. The middle building has on the ground floor facilities like library, auditorium, that could be more open to the city during the weekends. And while the second floor is reserved for teenagers' classrooms. So, and in the third one on the right, we placed a big court hall for different kinds of sports. There's also the 2 green patios that for us, it works as microclimates areas that could be open to the city as well and be responsible for promote the school as a public space, as this city has a dry condition weather, so it could be a very expressive moment. And as can be seen in this image, the school is a perimeter defined also by galleries, which contains a set of different interior spaces. Spaces that we think that is in the scale of the city or of the neighborhood. So we believe that this very simple sequence between covered and uncovered areas would give this school a distinct character in the neighborhood.
And for the kindergarten school, we try to use the same principles used in the elementary school just presented, but in a different way. And the project is especially structured by grids of internal spaces, also merged between covered and uncovered areas. And this special strategy conforms the school as a set of different experiences, a sequence of spaces, one could say, that are also open, closed, and maybe green and mineral, vary between playgrounds and educational gardens, classrooms, and multifunction spaces. And the project can be read as an interior archipelago of playful situations, like the idea of a universe, a set of small worlds that are connected by this ridge of galleries that also protects the classroom from the direct sunlight. And it is also like a kind of interior urbanism, like maybe in the scale of the kids, with small streets, open squares, green parks, and buildings. So these patios, as you can see in this image, are spaces beyond the traditional classroom. Spaces where the kids can reflect and discover the world through observation and interaction. And by this special organization, the project seeks to prompt a more collective and shared learning between students of different ages. And we like to see this proposal as one big interior classroom. A big classroom that could also be used by the city as a public park.
This project is in Curitiba, a big city in the south of Brazil. It was an open competition for private clients. So when we looked at the neighborhood, we found interesting that all the blocks in this part of the city have this kind of distorted shape. In white cutout, you can see where is the site. So we decided to make the shape of the building follow this distorted geometry of this corner plot, an action that can also increase the distance from the neighbor building on the right. A frequent interest in our projects is the idea of increasing the thickness of the envelope that defines a homescape. So this project proposed the direct interface of each of the interior spaces of the building with a belt of gardens that also involves all the apartments. So we see it as a thickness that is big enough to make room for an in-between space, which is neither total exterior or interior or controlled or free. In this collage, you can see there are different kinds of gardens on the lower level, middle, and upper part. By legislation, normally every apartment tower in Brazil has the right to build a 1.5 meter deep terrace in cantilever. So we just choose to make it a step further by using the height of the perimeter beam of the building in order to have enough earth to create this proper garden, as you can see in this section in the right. By doing it, we created a kind of garden system that works as a green filter, mediating the transition inside, outside of each type of units of the housing. And the housing tower sits in a plinth that offsets its geometry, creating also a space for the gardens of let's say row houses. So this is the plan of the plinth. It's all private except for the restaurant we proposed in the corner. And so right behind, you can see these 10 kind of row houses that has this generous garden. And although being in reality apartment, we think that it works in the end as true houses. And the plan of the typical floor tries the same strategy. So every room of the apartments has a total interface with a real garden. And as a choice, we made a structure grid that does not coincide with the partition walls of the units by using a type of reinforced slab that doesn't need beams. So this non-association between structure and partition walls generates the flexibility of the plan. So we think this is a project that tries to argue in the idea that density and nature are complementary in the search for a better quality of life within the cities we live. The gardens become a domestic refuge as a borderline of the homescape. We like to see it as a place that is empty of predefined social codes, where an inhabitant of a dense urban center could feel more pleasure to be.
And last project. Early this year, we were commissioned for the project of expansion of a house located in this bucolic island, which is in fact a lagoon island situated in the west zone of Rio. And this island was for a long time mostly occupied by small two-floor houses, very nice. But in the last decade, it went through like a wide process of verticalization with buildings with 4 or more levels being built. And in this condition, as you can imagine, the relation between interior and exterior spaces is very uncertain, and for that reason, a nice view from a living room is not thought as a permanent element anymore. So, as it could be easily blocked by a new construction of our neighbor building. So we saw there an opportunity to work with a similar idea of a green perimeter that could be a filter for this house, negotiating the existing of its interior domestic space with these very close neighbor buildings that surround it. And this is a collage of the project, and the new top house is the project. So it occupies the space where there was a roof of the old house, and by the proximity of the neighbors, the top house was thought as a patio house, open for its interior space. An interior space that is in reality the border space of this house, a green borderline that surrounds all its rooms. So the facade, made of a metal mesh, will serve as a green fence, creating a filter that gives an ambiguous sense of privacy for the house. And here's the plan, maybe inspired a little bit by the Farmworth house of Nice, with this core made of kitchen and bathroom, leaving free the space around it for the living room and the bedroom. So, but as you can see, the plan of the top house is not really centered in the projection of the house below. And by doing it, the garden perimeter around it varies in depth, being a generous terrace for the living room on the right, and a more intimate balcony for the bedroom on the left. And in this picture, you can see how the house is today, with this nice garden and some big trees. It is a beautiful plot indeed, but for financial reasons, the client decided to move to this top house that will be built and divide the ground floor into independent small houses to rent. This section shows the relation between the old house on the ground floor and the top house above it, that occupies all the given plot by the old house, but with a completely different materiality and a light metal structural system. A system to be easily transported to the site, because as you can imagine, it need to be transported by boats and small pieces. So, although being a very simple and cheap project, the existence of the generous garden that surrounds the top house as a background for life gives to it a kind of luxury. A luxury creating illusion of being in a suburban house, even with this private and domestic garden, even though knowing that's not exactly true. And this not defined between space of the garden negotiates somehow this intention of the project with the real life. And this is a project that was a bit delayed because of the quarantine, a project that we look forward to finish and to start to building soon. So that's it, and thank you for having us.